This morning, I was shopping in my local Elena when I came across this peculiar beverage. Kodomo no nomimono. Kodomo means child or kid, and nomimono means drink. So this essentially translates to child's drink. And it is essentially a drink for kids to indulge in the unsavory habits that their parents like to indulge in during the Christmas season. I wasn't initially going to buy this, but as I was picking it up to read the label, this little girl and her little sister came up beside me and said very clearly, "違う, めっちゃ違う." And feeling rather embarrassed, I decided the only appropriate thing for a grown adult man to do was to purchase the drink. And so the only thing I have left to do is drink it. After the video, let's begin class. I want to start today's class with a question. Is it ever okay to translate in the classroom? Well, your answer should be yes, but with an asterisk. So you're going to hear me say this a lot, but it really depends on the situation. When we translate in the classroom, we should be thinking about three things. Number one, what are you translating? Number two, who are you translating for? And number three, how often are you translating? And let's take a look at that first one. What are you translating? Translating is very effective for explaining simple words, particularly tangible nouns. Let's look at an example. What is wheat? Mugi. This is a direct translation and there's very little room for misinterpretation. And unless they're a farmer, that's usually the end of the conversation. But translation falls off quickly if you try to translate abstract nouns, complex verbs, or simply things that don't have direct translations. For example, 先生、青春って英語でなんて言うの? Well, most people translate this to springtime of youth, but that doesn't quite sound natural to an English speaker. So you might say, enjoying your youth. Notice here that the first translation doesn't sound that natural to an English speaker. It's not something someone would naturally say, but we might understand the meaning still. The second option offers a much more natural way to incorporate this idea, but notice that we've changed a lot of the meaning. We've added a verb that didn't exist in the original word. And these problems only compound the longer the thing is that you're trying to translate. As a general rule, the longer the translation, the more difficult it will be to translate, and the less accurate the translation will be. And we also have to think about who we're translating for. High-level students have an advantage by having pre-existing knowledge that they can use to grasp a more holistic approach of new vocabulary. Take, for example, what's an alcoholic? A person who is addicted to alcohol. Notice here that we didn't need to use a translation. As long as they understand the word addicted, then they can grasp the full knowledge of what an alcoholic is. And if they're very clever about it, then they'll realize they can remove alcohol as the prefix and add new words in there to form new ideas, such as a workaholic. But if you try the same approach with a low-level student, this happens. 先生, what's an ad? Ad is short for advertisement. An advertisement is like a big sign for a store. Have you been to Dotonbori? Winning? So. This is a big advertisement for the Glico company. So, ad is winning? No, you're not getting it. Notice here that the students' understanding of this new vocabulary was jeopardized because they didn't have the vocabulary in other areas to grasp the understanding. This entire situation could have been remedied with a very simple 3-syllable translation, 広告. Now, in this context, they're fairly likely to understand that if I say TV ad or billboard and then follow it with the Japanese translation, they're going to associate that word with the other words that I've given them. This gives them a much easier way to approach new vocabulary, if they truly don't have the vocabulary to reach it with their current English skill set. And in addition to that, if we really want students to practice speaking English, we shouldn't just give them the translations. We should give them the tools to ask for translations. For example, we require them to ask, 先生, what is this in English? And if we're bringing this into the real world, that is a perfectly natural sentence to ask in a normal conversation. Teachers have to constantly be thinking about what's the best way to teach. Now, the best way to teach doesn't always mean being the most effective. It means being the most efficient with the resources that you have. Time is perhaps one of the teacher's most valuable resources. In my opinion, it's better to spend 3 seconds on a quick translation that's highly inconsequential versus spending 3 minutes playing panicked taboo and wasting that time that a student could otherwise have spent practicing English and practicing the new vocabulary with their classmates. Lastly, we need to be careful about how often we're translating. Translation is an aid, a tool, not a crutch, and certainly should not be the goal of your lesson. Though I should say this very clearly. This is my opinion, not a fact. Much to my dismay, translating in a vacuum is a very normal testing practice here in Japan, so that does warrant its own benefits. Though if you're constantly translating in your lessons or your students are frequently asking questions, then first of all, congratulations. It's incredibly difficult to get students to ask questions, but second of all, something has clearly gone wrong. The first culprit I would suspect is that your lesson is either too advanced or too specific regarding its topic, manner, or subject. And similar to this, it may also be the fact that you have just failed to prepare your students with the vocabulary that they need to accomplish the tasks of the lesson. If, for example, you're teaching children and your topic is the solar system, that's a very fun and exciting topic to do, then you need to give them the vocabulary for the planets and maybe the stars, talk about space, or maybe connect that to the word spaceship. Give them the vocabulary. Don't assume that they'll understand or just know that vocabulary. Now, there's a lot of ways that you can do this. You can use flashcards. You can have them practice with rote repetition. My personal favorite is a word web, but we'll have to talk about that another day. So to wrap up, it really depends on the situation, like I said at the start. Though if you take one thing away from this video, it should be this. Translation is not an easy way out of teaching properly. Translation is a legitimate tool that any good teacher worth their salt should recognize as such and should recognize when it's appropriate to use. Now, it's my understanding that there are many learning environments where tools like translation is strictly forbidden, and they might have some good reasons for this, but it does make teaching a very uphill battle. It's very difficult to work in such constraints. Though if you have the freedom to use all the tools at your disposal, then it is your responsibility as a teacher to use them effectively. As a teacher, you have a passion and a responsibility to teach to the best of your abilities. And in that capacity, we have to be well informed about the decisions we make and what tools are best to use on a case-by-case basis. So trust yourself. And that's the end of class. So let's enjoy some 子供の飲み物. Why does it look like that? Is that? No way. Yeah. Yeah. I could imagine this as beer. Really? It's not that bad. You know what? I would buy this for a kid. Oh, it tastes like mecha chigao indeed. So that was terrible. That's why I prepared this. Funny enough, I actually ran into a student while I was walking this home from the store. And who knows, maybe that'll be the topic of the next video. Teaching. How to use alcohol in the classroom. I'm joking. Relax. It was a joke. What's an alcoholic? A person who loves to have a good time. Sorry, I don't know why I said that.